Good morning, everybody. Bruchim Habayim, and welcome to one and all. So, Be'ezer Hashem, Baruch Hashem, we begin a new Maamar today. Since this week is Parshas Vayakhel, and it's also Parshas Parah, Shabbos Parah. So this is actually a Maamar, a discourse that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said on Shabbos Parshas Vayakhel, which was also Parshas Parah. As you see in the headline, Shabbos Vayakhel-Pekudei, Parshas Parah, Mevarchem HaChodesh Nisan, Hey Tovshin Chaf Aleph. As you know, in the four parshas that we read in Adar, so you have Shkalim, and then you have Zachar, and then you have Parah, and then you have HaChodesh. So it happens to be that this year Vayakhel and Parshas Parah come together, which means you read Parshas Vayakhel, and then at the end, we also take out a second Sefer Torah, and at the end we read the second parsha of Para Aduma, which is Parshas Chukas, the beginning of Parshas Chukas. The literal reason is because these four parshas are connected to this time of the year. Shkalim, of course, is the Jewish people used to give Machzas HaShekel in the month of Adar, so we do it before Adar, the beginning of Adar, Shabbos Mevarchem Adar, or Chodesh Adar. And Zachar is before Purim to remember Amalek. And Parshas Parah is the one carbon that everybody had to bring individually, not just collectively, which you weren't responsible for, but individually was the carbon Pesach that every Jew had to bring, every Jew had to be a part of. And as a result of that, you had to clean, you had to be pure. You couldn't eat a carbon or bring a carbon if you weren't pure, so everybody had to make sure if they needed the cleansing of the Para Aduma, of the red heifer, to be able to purify them so they can go to the Bais HaMikdash, have the carbon Pesach offered, and then eat it on the night of Pesach. And then the last one is Parshas HaChodesh, which is about the preparations for Pesach. And that's the last of the four parshas that we read as Nisan approaches. So this Maamar, the Rebbe said Tovshin Chaf Aleph at the Farbrengen in 1961, and the Shabbos was both Vayakhel and Parshas Parah, and as we'll see, the two become connected. So let's begin. Today's class is dedicated by Nora Kogan, in honor of her wonderful parents, Victoria Bas Rezel and Velvel ben Avraham of blessed memory. Their loving kindness and good deeds will never be forgotten, and their daughter Nora dedicates this class in their honor and eternal loving memory. Thank you very, very much. That's beautiful. It's also dedicated by Rabbi Avram Smiki for bracha and atzlacha in honor of Avraham ben Esther and his family. Amen. And also for a complete and speedy recovery for Rachel Yehudis Bas Miriam. La'arichus yamim v'shanim tovos. Amen, and thank you for your partnership and friendship and all the blessings to all of you. So he begins with the pasuk. As always, we begin with a pasuk from Parshas Chukas, which is Parshas Parah. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe leimer, or Vayidaber Havaya. Havaya, Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, Zos Chukas Hatorah asher tziva Hashem leimer, v'yikchu elecha para aduma tmima v'gomer. Hashem speaks to Moshe and he says, this is the law of the Torah that Hashem has commanded Moshe to say to the Jews. And he begins the law, which is they should bring to you a red cow, a para aduma, and the whole parsha of what you do with this cow, how it's slaughtered, and then it's burnt, and then the ashes are mixed with water and you create a mixture of ashes and water, which is sprinkled on any body or anything that has become impure as a result of contact with a corpse. And you do it twice, on the third day and on the seventh day, a cycle of 7 days, following which they have to go to the mikveh, and then they are pure. It's known the diuk, the question, Mahu Imre Bais Palmim Havaya Kafisha Medayik B'Lekuda Torah. Lekuda Torah Parshas Chukas, I think we actually learned the Maamar together last year. He asks why it says Havaya twice, meaning Vayidaber Hashem El Moshe Leimer, Hashem is speaking to Moshe. So you should say Zos Chukas Hatorah Asher Tzivisi. You already said Hashem is speaking to Moshe. So now it's the middle of the conversation, right? So it's like you'll say, Yankel spoke to Moshe. And Yankel said to Moshe, this is what Yankel wants to say. No, Yankel said to Moshe, this is what I want to say. You're already in the middle of the quote. You know, we read Chumash, we look at it, yeah, why not another name of Hashem? But every word in Torah is b'diuk, it's meticulous. When it says Havaya twice, and one is completely superfluous, it needs an explanation. It's almost like you're talking about somebody else. It's like you're talking about another person. Yankel told Moshe, by the way, Zelig, told me the other day. That makes sense. So he says, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Leimer, Zos Chukas Hatorah Asher Tzivisi. No, it's Chedera Asher Tziva Hashem. What's the inyan in this?
What's superfluous? Is there more superfluous?
The second Havaya.
No, I understand. But he could have read Zos Chukas Hatorah. You have to say Asher Tzivisi.
There's another question. Jacobson in Medrash, Parshas Parah. There's a very interesting Medrash in Parshas Parah. It's Parsha Yotes, as he says in footnote 4, it's in section 19. And here, you have to understand, when we read Chumash or read Tanakh, so we often just read the words. Chazal were very sensitive to each expression. Especially when there's a unique phrase, it's always to teach you something. There's 630 mitzvahs. But only on 2 mitzvahs does it say, Zos Chukas. This is a chukah, this is a law. You could say it on every mitzvah. Every mitzvah is a law. Chukah means a law, a statute, a rule, a way to live. That's what chukah means. Chukim are statutes, laws. So it's only from 630 mitzvahs, twice in the whole Torah does it say about only 2 mitzvahs. Zos Chukas. This is the law, Zos Chukas. You know which 2? Paraduma, very good. Then what's the other one? So yeah, that's Parshas Chukas. It says Zos Chukas Hatorah, but you only have that expression once more. No, that's Chukas Hatorah. That's a mess. Paraduma. That's once. That same thing. Adam Kiyamos. That's the Parsha of Chukas. That's the Paraduma. That's what we're going to read on Shabbos. The only other time is Para and Pesach. In Parshas Parah, Hashem tells Moshe now, Zos Chukas Pesach. So Zos Chukas Hatorah, Zos Chukas Pesach. It's interesting. By Pesach, he doesn't say Zos Chukas Hatorah, this is the law of the Torah. It's the law of the Pesach. He could have said here also Zos Chukas Parah. Here he says Zos Chukas Hatorah. It's almost like the only law of the whole Torah, which is also strange. It's one mitzvah. It's not the only law of Torah. The word chukah means a law, a statute, a chayk. Like chukim, Sefer HaChukim. A chuk is a law, even till today in modern Hebrew. If you want to say a law, right? Chok HaMedinah, the law of the land. Chuk means a law, a statute. So it's interesting. It's the only 2 that says Zos Chukas, but by the second one, by Paradum, it says Zos Chukas Hatorah. It should have said Zos Chukas Parah. It's not the Chukas Hatorah. It's one of the Chukas Hatorah. But it's the only 2 places. What's the inyan in this? So this is a Medrash. And the Medrash gives a whole metaphor. Now, generally, you give metaphors when something is not understood, and you want to explain it, so you give a mashal. And the metaphor explains it. But here, the metaphor, it's an interesting metaphor. What is he trying to say? That's what he's doing. Because Medrash Parshas Parah, Yehi libi samim b'chukecha. It says in Tehillim, in Kuf Yotes, the longest capital in Tehillim Kuf Yotes, it says, Yehi libi samim b'chukecha. Which means what? David HaMelech is asking what? My heart should be whole, tamim. It should be wholesome, b'chukecha, in your laws. Taiches the Medrash, what is he asking for? Zeh Chukas HaPesach v'Chukas Parah. He's asking for one thing. Literally, you'll say, my heart should be whole with all of your laws. But he uses the word b'chukecha, says the Medrash. He was asking that my heart should make peace, should have tmimus. Yehei libi samim b'chukecha tu chukim. Chukas HaPesach and Chukas Parah. Lama sheshneim doimen zelaza. Because they're both similar. B'zen nema zez Chukas HaPesach, u'b'zen nema zez Chukas Hatorah. Parshas Parah it says zez Chukas HaPesach, and Parshas Chukas it says zez Chukas Hatorah. And therefore, they're similar. They're connected somehow. And that's why David HaMelech says, I'm asking my heart should be whole with these two laws. Continues the Medrash, but now there's always right away a Jewish question. Who's bigger? Now you'd say, who cares? But it's both. No. But you don't know which is greater than the other. In other words, they're both chukam. I get it. But which is greater? You don't know. They're both. They seem equal. Mashal, for this we have a metaphor. The Bais matronas, there were two queens. Matronissa is a queen, the wife of the king. Doimus, they were similar. They looked similar, meaning they were dressed in the same way. They had a similar appearance and demeanor. They carried themselves with the same royalty and aristocracy. So they're doimus. Shahayu mahalchis. They're both walking ka'achas together. It's not like one is walking ahead of the other, or one is guarding the other. They're both walking together ka'achas. Nirish shavai. So when you look at them, they seem identical. Shavah. Migdoila mizu. How do you know who's greater than the other? How do you know who is the great matronissa, who is the great queen, and who is the accompaniment? The answer is you can't know at the moment because they're walking together. They're walking mamish padrushka. How do you say when in Russian when you're walking? Huh? Padrushka, yeah.
It's interesting. The Russian word matryoshka comes from matrona.
What's matroshka in Russian?
It's like when the doll, one is inside another.
Padrushka. They're walking together, so you don't know who's greater. You have to wait. You have to see who accompanies whom to their home. When you see that one, that her friend, the other one, Malava escorts her all the way to the house and goes after her. And then she goes home, so now you realize the first one is greater. Because if not, no, the one who went into the house first, yeah. Because obviously she felt, right, that she doesn't want to leave her alone even for a moment. She escorted her all the way to her house, and she went home, and then the other one went alone. So obviously she's conferring this special dignity and honor to this person, so obviously she is greater. So till that point, you don't know. By Pesach it says chukah. By Parah nema by chukah. Migdoila, who's greater? The answer is, who needs who? Does the Parah Aduma need the Pesach? Does the Pesach need Parah Aduma? And the answer is, HaParah, Sha'oichle Pesach tzrichin la. Everybody needs the Parah Aduma. Those who eat the carbon Pesach must have the Parah Aduma. Shenemar v'lagchu l'tamei me'afar sreifas achatas. Because if you were impure, you couldn't be makar of the carbon Pesach, you couldn't eat the carbon Pesach. So you must have the Parah Aduma. Because they took from the ashes of the burnt parah and sprinkled it on the person. So b'meila, from here we know that Pesach is gevaldik, but Parah Aduma takes the cake. And that's the point. That's the mashal of the two queens.
There's another which says Pesach is not.
So this would explain why here it says Zos Chukas Hatorah and here it says Zos Chukas Pesach. Because this is something that's more collective, more all-encompassing. Exactly. Very good. So the idea here is that there's the Parah Aduma doesn't need the Pesach. The Parah Aduma can be independent. But the Pesach needs the Parah Aduma, right? So the Pesach follows the Parah Aduma, is looking for the Parah Aduma, escorts the Parah Aduma, because the Parah Aduma you can do. You can cleanse yourself, not on Pesach. It has its independent reality. Doesn't need carbon Pesach. You don't need to make a carbon Pesach to be clean through the Parah Aduma. It's a self-contained mitzvah. But in order to have Pesach, you need the Parah Aduma. So b'meila is the charaya that Parah Aduma is greater. Tzarich lahavin, the whole thing doesn't make sense here. First of all, ma winyan shestein gedolos. What is this? A race? A competition? I don't understand. It's two mitzvahs. No, I'm asking, what's greater? Tefillin? Yeah, or tzitzis? Start getting what's mezuzah or this? Everything you can do that. Start comparing every mitzvah. What's this whole inyan? They're both big, but now we have to know who's bigger, and we have to compare them to each other. And what does the mashal teach? Again, a mashal is here. Why is there a mashal? We always speak about this. What's the idea of a metaphor? And in Chassidus, it always says a metaphor is tzimtzum. It's to bring it down to a new world, to a new level, to make it visual. The mashal is hamadna mashal. What's your point? There's two queens and they're walking, but you don't know who's the different. And who cares? And why do you have to know which queen is greater? Is it Psnegeya? Is it Psvashidach? What do you want to know? Who to pay taxes to? Who to be nicer to? Who should be more scared of? What's the competition between these two women? Why are you analyzing this? And what's the mashal give us a depth? It gives us a havana. Oh, now we get it. How? What do we get now? And how do you know why she escorted her to that? I mean, she escorted her to the house. So usually she's giving more covet. L'chayre, she's giving more covet to her than she's giving to herself. Because you don't let a queen go alone. I understand. So the fact that I don't let you go alone, but you let me go alone, means that there's a certain deference that I have to you. I get it. But what's the shaykhis? What's Pesach doesn't want to go alone, so Para can't go alone, so Pesach has to come to her. It's a whole different Indian. Yeah, of course. If you're Tameh, you need Para Aduma. I mean, it's just... how's that to prove Para Aduma is greater? If you're Tameh, you need Para Aduma. What does that have to do? Yeah, you need Para Aduma. What did it show? That Para Aduma doesn't want to leave Pesach alone, and therefore she's escorting her to the house. It's the whole Indian, you understand? Again, you see these Midrashim, okay, it's Nacham Mashal, fine, who cares? But obviously Chazal something was bothering them here. What David HaMelech is saying, Dafka, these two, why these are compared to each other. They're both big, but you have to know which is bigger. And this mashal gives us the perspective. So it's Tzarech Lobin, Mal Winyan Shestein Gedolos, Vayakhel-Pekudei Chukas Hatorah Gedolos, Lubavitcher Rebbe. But nonetheless, Chukas Hatorah is greater because those who eat the Para and Pesach need it. Yeah, they need it for a technical reason because they're not pure. Or to put it differently, let's say you were certain that you were pure, you wouldn't need the Para Aduma. You could bring the Para and Pesach. The reason, however, people usually had contact with corpse in one way or another, or at least they had a suffix. So they used to do Para Aduma. So it was a practical thing that many people would do. Maybe most people would do it. Because unless you were like a kohen who was very, very careful. Remember, Tumas Mace was a very, very common tumah, because if a mace dies in a house, everything under the roof becomes tameh, including the kelim. That's called tumas oil. So even if somebody didn't touch a corpse or carry a corpse, which maybe wasn't so common, right? It was also pretty common. But right, you're walking into the house or anything, anybody there was tameh. So it was a very, very common thing. And it wasn't like there were hospitals where mason were there. Everything was in the house usually. So b'meila was a very common thing. I get that. So you constantly needed Para Aduma, but it shows up some quality. It's an interesting thing. Right. It seems like almost a prerequisite. It's a hachana that you need. It's like a passport. So the passport is more important than the destination where you're going to go. You're going to a chasana of your brother. You say, what's greater, the passport or the chasana? So you'll say... So you'll say the passport. Why? Because you can have the chasana because you can't get to the chasana without it. You can have a passport without a chasana. But you can't get to the chasana without the passport. Okay, I understand. So the passport is greater. It's true, you can't get to the chasana without the passport. So for this, the passport becomes greater. You can have a passport without a wedding. It's I'm just explaining what the kasha is. Excuse me. So the emes says that the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya that in Ein Yaakov, which means in Medrash, most of the secrets of Torah are concealed in the Agadas of Shas and Medrashim. All the stories in Gemara, all the Agadas, meaning you have the section of Halacha, but you have all the section of Agadas, the explanations of Psukim, and the stories and the metaphors in Gemara and also in Medrash. The Alter Rebbe writes in Igeres HaKodesh in Tanya that Roiv Soides HaTorah Gnuzin Ba. Most of the secrets of Torah are hidden over there. So here's a classic example. Without Pnimiyus HaTorah, it's very hard to understand what this Medrash wants. They're onto something they want to say here, both in the question and the answer and the mashal. So this Maamar is going to explain the whole inyan, and then come back at the end to the Medrash and see what the Medrash is teaching us with Pesach and Parah. The Yuvan Zebahekdim, all of this will be understood by prefacing Mashakasa with Parshas Zu, what it says in Parshas Vayakhel. Remember, this is Parshas Parah and Vayakhel. In the beginning of Vayakhel, Moshe Rabbeinu gathers the Jewish people and he speaks to them about two major mitzvahs, Shabbos and building of the Mishkan. He speaks about Shabbos and he says 6 days work should be done, and on the 7th day you should have Shabbos. And then he tells the one mitzvah that you're not allowed to on Shabbos, you're not allowed to do malacha. And then he says, do not light, do not ignite fire in all of your dwellings wherever you live on the day of Shabbos. And here there's the famous big question, Shabbos has so many types of labors that are forbidden. But what it says in Torah is, you shouldn't do malacha on Shabbos. And Chazal come and have a whole Masechta called Maseches Shabbos, and a very complicated Masechta, to explain what is the definition of malacha. But there's one exception. The only malacha that the Torah decided to specify that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos is light a fire. It could also say everything else. It doesn't say you're not allowed to write on Shabbos. It doesn't say you're not allowed to weave on Shabbos. It doesn't say you're not allowed to extinguish a flame on Shabbos. You're not allowed to shecht on Shabbos. It doesn't say that you're not allowed to harvest on Shabbos. It says b'chodesh or b'kotzer tishbais. It's a question if it's Shabbos or it's Shvius, whatever. It's a complicated pasuk in Parshas Kisisa. If it's talking about Shabbos or it's talking about Shemitah, and why those two are specified. But the only malacha that it clearly says, you have 39 malachas in Shabbos, right? From plowing and planting and harvesting and gathering and threshing and winnowing and grinding and selecting and baking and cooking and all the good things, all the way, you have hunting, whatever, all the malachas of Shabbos, 39, all the way till Makah b'Patish, Monsey mirishus l'rishus. The only one that says you're not allowed to, clearly that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos is lighting a fire. Why this? Now this is a question the Gemara asks. Gemara asks it in a few places. Why was the Torah if you want to say it, it's very nice that you tell me. But what happened with all the other malachas? So maybe this is the only malacha on Shabbos. But he says don't do malacha on Shabbos. And now we have to know what malacha is. But here, the Torah doesn't allow it to be included in malacha. So the Gemara asks this question in a few places, in Pesachim and in Shabbos and other places. There's a huge machlokes of the Tanoim about it. You may know havara lechalik yatzis or havara lelav yatzis, which means the Gemara explains that if it would have only said don't do malacha on Shabbos, all the malachas would be considered one isser, one prohibition. So let's say a Jew forgets his Shabbos, and he plows, and he plants, and he harvests, and he threshes, and he selects, and he winnows, and he grinds, and he bakes, and he shechts, and he bakes, and he dyes, he paints, and he writes, and he erases, and he sews. All the malachas, 39. It was a busy Shabbos, yeah. It was a busy Shabbos. So you would say, Leisasach al malacha. He did one isur, he did malacha on Shabbos. He has to bring one carbon chatas. That's why the Torah specifies, Leisavaru eish b'chol mishvasechem b'yom Shabbos, havara lechalik yotzes. The mitzvah of avara teaches you that there is a chiluk malachas, meaning just like here the Torah specifies, it's its own prohibition. So you would have to then bring 39 carbon chatayas theoretically on that for that Shabbos, rather than one. It's not like, for example, if somebody eats chaylev, right, and then forgets and eats chaylev and then eats another part of chaylev, another chaylev, another chaylev, and they bring one carbon. But if they eat chaylev and dam, they forget, they have to bring two carbonates because there's two separate isurim. So that's why the Torah specifies to teach me that each malacha of Shabbos is self-contained and it's its own. That's one shit. Another shit is havara lelav yatzis. And actually the Torah is minimizing this. That it's not like the other prohibitions of Shabbos. It's only a lav. It's much, much, much more lenient. However, but it still doesn't answer the question. Why was fire chosen? For this, you could have chosen one of the 39 and specified it. Why was fire chosen? So when he says Ve'inei move on, it's not like he doesn't know. He knows the Gemara's question, but the Gemara doesn't explain why this one. Why was this suddenly being cautioned? Hizir, he warns about it more than the other ones. The Shalom Masech Shabbos explains. When he says Shalom Masech Shabbos, doesn't mean the Shalom doesn't have a commentary on Masech Shabbos. The Shalom Sefer Shnei Luchas Abris has a section called Masech Shabbos. It's a section on Shabbos. So the Shalom, Rabbeinu Yeshaya Horowitz, explains in the section of Shabbos, this is in addition to what explains in Gemara why Havara is specified. As he says, Shabbos, Yevamah, Sanhedrin. So Shalom says a fascinating thing. The whole creation was created the first day, everything was created in a collective, general way, in a more nebulous way, as a seminal, as in a general way. Rashi says, it says, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. What's the S? So Rashi says already on the first day, heaven was created, earth was created, and everything inside was created, but it was all b'derech klal. B'derech klal means the potential of it was created, it still had to be developed. The Ramban brings that in the beginning everything was like a little point, a little seminal point, and then it expanded. The Gemara says that it expanded, and Hashem had to say, stop, because if it would have expanded more, everything would have just dissolved. It's quite eerily similar with what they talk about it beginning as a seminal point and expanding, but I'll call upon him in the beginning, the first day, everything was there, b'derech klal, and then it had to be fleshed out into details over the next days. V'hainu, what's the pshat lefi sham maimer yihi er shaya b'yem rishon nichlu b'y kol ha'mamaros? What was the first utterance of Hashem? Vayomer Elokim yihi er, let there be light. Vayihi er, that's the first day. That's the only thing that happens the first day. He calls light day and darkness night. Vayere vayivoyka yom echad. The next day is already the next Maamar Yehirakiya. So when we say the first day, everything was created, it means it was all included. In which words? Yehi or let there be light. So it's interesting. Here we're learning about light. When he says let there be light, that utterance of the only one the first day already includes everything. That Yehi or. This is also parallels in Kabbalah. The Sfiris. The first one of the 10 utterances is Chachma. And Chachma encompasses all of the other spheres. And it's taka nekuda. Chachma is a nekuda, it's a seminal point, but it encompasses everything that comes out of it, but it has to be fleshed out. Shabbos, you need a rest from all the 39 labors, which basically is the creation that happened through the 10 utterances. All the malachas. What do we say? That Hashem ceased to create and he rested from creation. Which creation? The 10 utterances. Hu amar vayeh. And on Shabbos we're also resting. So the whole, just like Hashem created through the 10 Maamaras, we create through malachas. But the question is, what did he rest from be'ikr? What was the first thing he created? What was the first thing he involved in? And the answer is, he made a fire. He made a fire, he made light. So the main shvisa of Shabbos, the main resting of Shabbos is from what? From igniting a fire, which parallels the human creative process of let there be light. So our malachas throughout the week parallel God's malach of creation. God creates, and we continue that creation. We perpetuate creation, we create. And that's what malacha means. Malacha means not just working hard. You're allowed to schlep a couch on Shabbos, even if it's very, very heavy, and you're not allowed to ignite a match on Shabbos. Schlepping a couch is harder than igniting a match. But igniting a match, you're creating something. It's creative labor. It's changing the status of something. It's continuing God's work of creation. Shabbos, we seize the work of creativity. I don't mean creativity in the mind, I mean creativity in the physical world. Even when you write something, you're taking a pen and you're making a new Metzias. On this paper, there were no letters. And suddenly I write out a few letters. I just created something. There's a new Metzias. On this paper, there's letters. I planted. I took a seed. The seed was in one place. I put it in the earth. It's now going to take root, and a new Metzias is going to happen. Something is going to grow, hopefully. The same is true even plowing. You took the earth, it was infertile, you changed it, it's a creative act. All the malachas of Shabbos is a creative act. You're perpetuating God's work of creation. Your typhus? The same is true with erasing, the same is true with extinguishing, the same is true with cooking. You bake something, you took something that was unedible, you take dough, you put it in the oven, it bakes, and suddenly it becomes challah, becomes bread. You furthered the act of creation. It's the human paralleling Hashem's creative power to change the world. And make it better, hopefully make it better. But the bottom is changing. And that's what the malachas of Shabbos is. The same is true with harvesting, even harvesting. It was connected to the earth. You can't have it in your house, you can't eat it. The apple is connected to the tree. And you cut the apple. That is a creative piece of work. It's very easy, you just tore of the apple. Et cetera, et cetera. The same with the mashal goizes, right? You're shearing wool from a sheep. It's one of the malachas of Shabbos. Here again, it's connected to the sheep. You actually made a creative change in it because this is the beginning of making a sweater. You can't make a sweater when it's on the sheep. Obviously, you still have to do many processes. There's bleaching, even bleaching, doing the laundry. What are you doing? It's a creative process. Your typhus, that's the inyan. I once saw a letter from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Somebody wrote to him, I don't understand. Shabbos is supposed to rest. He said, what's the big deal of lighting a cigarette on Shabbos? It's nothing. It doesn't take away my rest. You take a match, you strike the match, and you light a fire. But that's called work on Shabbos? What's the work? I understand. Don't go to the office. Don't make, Fakert. You're saying fakert, yeah. I understand plowing, planting, okay. You're harvesting your grain. You put on a switch. What's the? So he wrote. So he wrote back to him. He said, for Hashem, creating the world was easier than for you igniting a match. But he rested. It was easier for him to create the world than it was for you to ignite a match. But he rested from that. You know, it's not nigeya. It's not hard to strike a match. We all know that. Or today to put on a light. V'chuli v'chuli. Or certainly to carry mirashus l'rashus. But the inyan of malacha and then schlepping a couch from upstairs to downstairs could be very heavy. It could be hard. You may even need another person to do it with you. And you're schwitzing. And you're allowed to do that on Shabbos. You have a big table. They do it in every shul. Meshlep. The Kiddushim guys are schlepping and schlepping and schlepping. And they're schwitzing. Doesn't stop. They're all goyim. Shabbos goyim. Very good. You're saying it's al Shabbos goyim. Very good. The sun, the moon, the rain, the winds. Al koso, the Shalah says Amayda de Kavart. What was the first malacha that Hashem did? What did he create? Fire. Vayomer Elokim Yehi Or. And that's the beginning. And that includes, as we said, everything else. So when the Torah wants to tell a Jew what shouldn't you do on Shabbos, he could have said all the 39. But he goes to the first that Hashem did, which is the first thing Hashem did. And that's the yesod for all the other ones. So he says, Lo savaru eish, don't make light like God made. Don't make a fire. And that's where it starts. So when he wants to give an example, he uses that one because that was the first malach. And not only it's the first, that's number one, and number two, it includes the other ones. Klolos hamamaris, Yehi is the klolos. The Shalah says it's as though he would have said, don't do malacha. He says, don't do a light fire, because lighting the fire is koilel kol ma'aser bereshis. So it also encompasses all the labors that a person might do on Shabbos. Just like by Hashem, this was the first Maamar. Why is light the first thing? Because this is the opening, the key to creation is light. We crack the mystery of light. You crack the mystery of creation. And we always speak about Oir. Oir is the interface between the infinite and the finite. Even in the physical world, the properties of light are incredible. They defy what's human comprehension. Even just the speed of light. Just the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. Almost 300,000, around 300,000 kilometers per second, the speed of light. the properties of light are so mind-staggering that light is like the interface between the spiritual and the physical. In the sense it's physical. We enjoy it, we appreciate it, we can discuss it, we can measure it, we see the impact. It's not a spiritual, transcendent reality that you have to talk about only with your mind. The whole world lives from, we need light. Light is the fuel of creation. It's the fire of creation, pun intended.
Essential ingredient. E equal MC squared.
Yeah, the essential ingredient.
No matter.
And as we learn here, because this is actually the beginning of all the Maamaris. The whole world is included in that, and that's what he mentioned. This is the Shalosh Vart. To understand this deeper, and also to understand what this means in a person's avodah, in a person's life. The pasuk says, "Ki Hashem elekecha eish oichlehu." When Moshe Rabbeinu wants to describe Hashem, so from all the different things that he says, he could have said your God is a mountain. Yeah, he could have said a lot of things. Your God is an ocean. I mean, he could have said a lot of things. Your God is a thunderstorm. Your God is, he says, Hashem alekech eishaychlu. Your God is a consuming fire. It's a fire that eats. In Parshas Parah. What does this mean? So most people naturally interpret it that it's, he's warning them. Basically, he's going to eat you up. He's a fire. If he would call you a mountain stays in its place. We're not afraid of mountains. But a fire is blazing and raging like, get out of the way. So that's really his message to the Jewish people. Hashem alekech eishaychlu. He just wants to eat you up like a fire. What's the inyan in it? The b'chinas havaya, so the pshat is, the b'chinas havaya lekecha, or b'prati is yosef b'chinas lekecha, koichacha v'chayuska, shuinyan amshacha v'yerida, nimshal eish. The words he uses is ki Hashem lekecha. He uses two words. Yutke vavke, which is elekecha. Whenever you have in Torah two names together, it's again always meticulous. He could have said Hashem eishaychlu, Elekecha eishaychlu. We know Elekecha. He says Ki Yutke Vavke Elekecha eishaychlu. Hashem, who is your God, is an eishaychlu. Not by the way. In Torah you have often beginning of creation. Bereshis bara Elekim Hashemayim Basara. It doesn't say Bereshis bara Hashem Elekim. Vayomer Elekim Yiyah. It doesn't say Vayomer Hashem Elekim. Later it says, Eila told us Hashemayim Varetz b'yom asayis Hashem Elekim. So whenever he uses the two names Hashem Elekim, and especially Hashem Elekecha, it's obviously b'diuk, it's not stam. Why two names? You could have put three names. You could have said Hashem Elekecha, Shin Daled Yud, Eishaychlu. So it's b'diuk. So he says that's the whole vart here. That Hashem Elekecha, especially Elekecha, what's Elekecha? Elekecha is the only name of Hashem that changes between plural and singular, between the collective and the individual. For example, Yudke Vavke doesn't change. Elekecha comes in many forms. There's Elekim, there's Elekai, there's Elekecha, there's Elekechem, there's Elekehem. You see how many times it changes? There's Keli. Keli is the name Kale. But Elekim changes to all these things. It's not just a plain noun like Yudke Vavke doesn't change. There's no way of saying Yudke Vavke, you're Yudke Vavke. I have no way of doing that. It's just the name of Hashem, Yudke Vavke. Anoichi Hashem. I have no other way of saying it, Yudke Vavke. Elekecha, like we say at the end of Krishma, Ani Hashem Elekechem. Here we say Hashem Elekecha. You could just say Elekim. So that type of Elekecha in Shulchan Aruch, it says that Elekim is Koyach and Chiyus. The word Elekim in Lashon Kodesh means strength and energy. Ele haaretz lakach, Elekim lo yisekalel. Anything that represents strength and energy is Elekim. Shulchan Aruch in Sif Simin Hey, he explains the kavanah, what you should think about the names. So when it says to Hashem Elekim, he says that he's makar hakoiches kulam. He's the source of all the strength. So that's why it's so dynamic, because Elekecha, he says, Al Pi Chassidus is the Elekus that becomes your consciousness. It's your strength. It's individuated. It's your energy, and you have your source of energy. I have my source of energy. So Elekim is dafke, custom-made and tailor-made to the individuated chemistry of every single creation. That's what he says. Elekecha is koichacha v'chayuschecha. This is the way divinity flows downward from the source into the creation and into every creation. Nimshala eish. And so Moshe says you have to understand that it's like fire. Hashem elekecha. When Hashem becomes elekecha, in other words, especially elekecha, which is koichacha v'chayuscha, this is fire. Sheyisoid eish chalak mekol hayisoides bekach shebetivu elelamayla mitzad atzmei neshayich lebchinas hamata. The element of fire is different than all the other elements. We have fire, eish, ruach, mayim, afar. Fire and ruach is air, and mayim is earth, is water, and afar is earth. So the other ones, for example, afar, of course, is earth goes downward, and mayim goes downward, and ruach, different directions, but eish always goes up. That's the nature of fire. So this is a metaphor that the Yisoida, eish, is different than the other elements, that by nature it's always ascending upward. And it's swaying, it's like licking the air, it's, so to speak, trying to kiss heaven. And on its own, if you don't force it, if you don't contain it, it doesn't remain down here. It's going to depart. And even when you are, when it's on there's a wick holding it or a log holding it, it's always going up. It's like physically what it looks like is it's trying to escape. It's sinish ruyik. You put the water into the cup, the water is here. If you let the water flow, it's going to go lower and lower. It's going to always find, water is going to look for the lowest surface to trickle down to. And of course, afar as well. You left afar and it's going to go down. Eish, on the other hand, is always ascending. It doesn't go down. And when you want to hold it down, you have to keep it down. So Moshe Rabbeinu was telling the Jewish people, Havaya lekecha is the union of Eish. Just like fire goes upwards and it's separated from the mata, it tries to escape its earthly container. This is the lashon that we learned many times. It's a lashon from Alter Rebbe in Torah Oyer, Likutei Torah, as he says. It's Torah Oyer Purim, Likutei Torah Shir Hashirim, Lo Yizeu Iker Elikus. This is not the main union of Elikus, of godliness. Masha Olam is mishavim imenu, that the worlds emerge from him. Shelikus nivda legamri miklolas inyan olamas. Elikus is essentially completely transcendent of anything of olamas, of worlds. Ubchinis elikus shemahava olamas, the elikus that does create the worlds, which are basically the 10 utterances, which is the elikus that recreates the worlds. Nikras bezoyar b'shem milin dehedyoyte be'erech shalamayla. The Zohar calls asada mamara as a very sharp word, milin dehedyoyte, which means peasant-like words. Milin of a hedyot. Hedyot is a peasant. Milin dehedyoyte. The Zohar says about creation, says lav urcha de malka lishtoi b'milin dehedyoyte. It's a pasnish. It's not the way of the king to speak such peasant-like words. And it's referring to asada mamaras. Milin dehedyoyte. What's pshat? Milin dehedyoyte means it's almost like you say, it's not suitable for you to say such words. It's beneath you. That's milin dehedyoyte. The aseres hadibris, this is not milin dehedyoyte. Asada mamaras is milin dehedyoyte. That's the nikud. Elefisha etzem helikus nivda legamre meinyan olamas. Because etzem helikus is completely nivda. It's the union of eish. It's taka coming down. But be'etzem, what it's telling you is, it's ein soif, it's hecher. So to capture, to define helikus by the olamas, it's milin dehedyoyte. It's like taking these words, these words which completely don't even reflect the true depth of this person, and turn these words into a picture of what's being described there. It's completely not be'erech, completely not reflective of the Inyan. Hitaka said those words, and those words came from him, and obviously he has the capacity to articulate himself that way as well. But if you think for a moment, you touched the essence, you touched the core. This doesn't even touch the ikar of elikus. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying. It's takeh lekecha. It's your koyach. He says both havaya and elekecha. The chiddush is even elekecha, even the elekecha, which is the chiyus that comes into you. You should understand that. Be'etzem, what is it? It's an inyan of eish. It's an inyan of ein soif. It's completely transcendent from any container, and its articulation in this particular way is an inyan of loizel ikar elikus. This is not the main inyan of elikus. Etzem alakus nivdel legamne minyan olamas. Yeah. So even when it's contained, like Eish, yeah, it's never the Eish doesn't say, I don't belong in this cup. This is not, don't limit me. I don't belong here. The Mayim becomes comfortable. You understand? It's not the Eish, you put it into the cup, you know what happens? The cup is gone in a few seconds. In other words, what it's telling you is, this is not my place. That's what, Mayim doesn't say that. Ruach doesn't say that. Ofer doesn't say that. Eish says it. I am here. I know I'm here. But this is not me. This is not my place. That's pshat. Hashem Elokecha Eish Oichlo. Ken, Gam, yeah. Yeah. Even when it's here, it's so to speak not here. In other words, even when it came here, it's not like, oh, you have it. Right, it doesn't have a resting place. And if you think it has a resting place, it's going to surprise you. Yeah. Well, Mayim could be contained. It looks for the lowest place, and when it lands there, it lands there. Yeah, you can have a tsunami, that's true. You can have a tsunami, you can have a hurricane. That's true. Mayim Rabim. You can have a Mabul. Huh? Yeah. But Eish, but if you have hopefully you don't have a Chas v'Shalom tsunami. If you have a little Mayim, it can somehow find a place. And it goes downward. Even then, Mayim goes down. It looks for the lowest surface. And if the lowest surface has space for it, it will fill it, and that's it. If there's a cistern, there's a pit, it'll go into the pit, and if it fills the pit, then you end it.
The biggest force of tsunami is not its own force.
Right, that's true. You're right. The tsunami is not the water itself. It's the wind, the storm, etc. that's propelling the water. Huh?
The ash is its own force is pushing it.
It's a chilan babakama. Darkan lahalech, darkan lahazik. Leilech lahazik. Kisiva reish, wie steht in Parshas Mishpatim, umotza kaitzim. Right? In other words, the natural thing of fire. I lit a fire, I made a barbecue in my backyard. The other person's field gets burnt. I'm a choy. Why am I a choy? I didn't want to burn your field. The answer is, darkan leilech lahazik. The age doesn't stay in one place. Yeah? Yeah, a swimming pool stays in one way. I don't have to guard my swimming pool. You jumped into my swimming pool. I'm sorry, but that's not my fault. I mean, practically, you should have a fence around your swimming pool, obviously. You need a mic around your car. No one is forcing the fire to stay down. The fire is eating. Yes. That's the truth. If you don't give something to eat, if you don't give the fire lunch, it's like, I'm out of here. I'm not interested. That's exactly the point. Huh? The fire wants to eat lunch. It wants to eat lunch. If you will go up, it will stop eating lunch and go up. And it's not going to be here. That's part of this. Even when I'm feeding him, he's going up. And if I don't feed him, he's Bechal disappears. Have a good day. The Chaim even says, it's brought in Tanya, you have to know exactly what it means in today's language. But the Chaim, the Rizal says that the reason that the Eish is going up is it wants to be included in Yesoid HaEish Tachas Galgal HaYareach. It wants to go back to the source of fire, which is Tachas Galgal HaYareach. And when you don't feed it, that's where it goes back to. That's what the Rizal writes. You have to know exactly what that, how to explain that exactly. I'm not sure, but the Oisius are from the Rizal. It's brought in Tanya, Perikit Tes. Huh?
It looks like from the fire that it also wants to stay here.
Then why does it keep on going up?
It looks for some stuff.
It looks like if you feed it wax on the bottom, so it looks like it wants to stay.
You feed it, you force it. The moment you stop feeding it, it's gone. And even when you're feeding it, it's like there's a part that's up. What's the inyan here? Why is this so negative? What's the Rebbe saying here? That this is elikus. This is Elikus. Even when Elikus creates worlds, which is already Elikecha, Hashem Elikecha. It's Hashem and it became Elikecha. It's called still an union of Eish. Lo yizeu ikir Elikus mashaylam es mesavim menu. You can't be a toifus and own it and grasp it and think you got it. Because by definition, it doesn't have a definition. So it always challenges you. Because it's the flow of infinity. Now this is very frustrating until you surrender. Once you surrender, you're good. I want to own the fire. Come on. Okay? Come in, I'll give you a hug. I'll control you. You can't do that. Don't try to hug the flame. Huh? Yeah. All you can do is become consumed. The Baal Shem Tov once said with fire, with fire, he says, you have a choice. Either you stay far away, or you completely jump into it. If you say, I'm going to put, you put your feet into, it's a hot day, you put your feet into the water and you enjoy the beach. Have a good day, enjoy. You say, I'm going to put it's a cold day, I'm going to put my legs into the fire. Chas v'shalom, you don't want to do that. Either it's eish oichlo, it eats up. So either you just stay away, fine, watch it from far. Once you're in, it's complete. Say, why is that? The answer is you cannot internalize fire on your terms. It doesn't work that way. That's the yin of Elikus. When you talk about Ein Sof, you can't control it, you can't limit it, you can't reduce it, this is it. There's Asara Mamaris, and Asara Mamaris are reduced. This is an elephant. It's not a chimpanzee, it's an elephant. It's not a black hole. Every Asara Mamaris, all the other Mamaris, it's reduced. It's filtered. It's Elikecha, it's your consciousness. That's true, but it's still Eish. Lo yizeu ikir Elikus mashaylam es mishavim imenu means that the Nekuda of Elikus can't be described or captured or articulated even in the totality of the universe, which is infinite. Still, it's called Milan de Hadyaita. Milan de Hadyaita means Nish das is das. It's fueling it, and it's expressing it, and it's coming down, and it's manifesting, and it's casting light, and it's gewaldig, but it's Milan de Hadyaita. Elikus be'etzem is completely beyond that. Ein Sof. Yeah, you got it a little bit, the Nekuda? Huh? It's burning. It's a brenta fire. It's a brenta fire. It's a book about cuts. You know what? A fire burns. Eish boye bekotsk. Who wrote it? Mendelboim. Eish boye bekotsk. No.
There is a book printed nowadays called Eish Ochel. One of the Rebbe's.
Well, Reb Kleinim is Kalman of Piasetzna has a Sefer Eish Kodesh, the holy fire, from the Warsaw Ghetto. He buried it, and it was found, I think, in 1959 or in Warsaw. So the Indian of Eish, that's the dugam of Eish Ochel. So this is all the beginning to explain the Shalom much deeper, why the whole beginning of creation is igniting a fire. Because this is again the interface from coming to from pure Ein Sof to be embodied in a world, and ultimately a physical world. It can't be defined. And even when it's defined, that's the point, even when it's defined, it's not defined. Lo yizeu ikir Elikus mashaylam es mesavim imenu means there's nothing about the worlds that can capture ikir Elikus. In other words, we call Hashem the Bashefer. So it sounds like, who is Hashem? The creator. How do you know a creator from his creation? You say, this man is the greatest sculptor who ever lived. Show me his sculptures. So you look at the sculpture, you say, wow, wow. Yeah? Say, this man is the greatest writer who ever lived. Show me his literature. You look at his book and you say, psst. His imprint is there. His personality. This person's this psychologist is unparalleled. Let's see his work. You look at his work. The same is true with an artist, with an architect, with an athlete, with a dancer, with an orator, and every field, essentially. The work of creation captures the author. Yishakayach. Ich bet mechilim, the chakayin. It's Michael Zayn, yeah? Was once a Farbrengen, the Rebbe asked Rabbi Yoel Khan to give somebody l'chaim, and then afterwards he asked Mechila because he was a kayin. Huh? Very good. Very good. Huh? Ich kann es nicht sagen, darf es sagen. It was about me, so we can sagen, as covered atzmai hu deirish is best as ich sage. Huh? Karbonis, yeah, I understood. Reach nechayach, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, essentially, what's the karbonis? Karbonis is, you stoked the flame. You stoked the flames through the nefesh habahamis, through the animal soul. I just started to say something, no? An artist conveys, a piece of art captures the artist. You say, wow. And the artist may be very proud to say, yes, this is me. Sometimes the artist will look at a picture and say, I did this when I was 11, I was half asleep, I was in a depression. It's not, throw it in the garbage. Sometimes it's very hard for artists to look at their pieces of work because they knew what state they were in, and everybody's like, wow, it's beautiful. It's garnished. This is like the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst. Even 1% of my creativity is not there. Al pi pashtus, you look at the world and you say, wow, God, you're pretty impressive. Not bad. You look at a blade of grass, even if you study one blade of grass, you should know that the chachma, the wisdom and the intricate details in one blade of grass are beyond what a human mind can comprehend. Whatever we know about a blade of grass pales in comparison to what there is. And this is pure from a pure scientific point of view. One cell, the intricacies of one cell are more complex than the infrastructure of London, Paris, New York, Los Angeles, Tel Aviv, Moscow, Melbourne, and Chicago put together. Now the infrastructure of Chicago is complex, and the infrastructure of London and the infrastructure of Moscow, b'chlal nicht of us reden. And one cell which you can't even see, and you have 70 trillion of them in your body, is more complex, and this is pure science. So it's pretty, as you would say in English, pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And the Rambam says that when you study the world, this is the way to reach Av and Yira. That's what the Rambam says. Comes down to Rebbe and says, all's good. And we have it also in Torah. Marabu masach Hashem, agadlu masach Hashem, Hashemayim misaprim kvoid ekel, Maise Yadav Magid Arakia. We say it Shabbos morning from Tehillim, Tehillim Kapitel Yutes. And endless psukim like that in Psukkah de Zimra, right? Constantly. And it's true. It's true. The Chachme, like the Chovos HaLevavos, in his Svarim, describes this at length, and many of the Rishonim and the Acharonim. Rabbi Avigdor Miller, in a lot of his English works, this is what he wanted to show people. When you're eating an apple, don't take the apple for granted. Like, stop, marvel, think about what happened to produce this apple and how unlikely it is. How it's literally a mind-staggering miracle, like Kriyas Yamsuf, that this apple emerged. We don't think about it. You take a seed, you put it in the earth. Sure, there's an apple. Why is there an apple? What happened? Somebody knew that you take a seed together with earth, together with water, together with oxygen, together with light, the right climate, boom, here. And you have apple tree for hundreds and hundreds of years producing thousands and thousands and thousands of apples. And that doesn't even say it, because you have to know the more you're studying what a seed is and you see what it is, the more mind-staggering it is, how this whole process exists. First of all, what's contained in a seed, how it holds it together, how the earth brings it out, etc., etc. You could learn this for 70 years and still not know the secret of an apple. And this is true about one I don't want to say stupid apple, because my point is that there's no such a thing as a stupid apple. But one small, tiny little apple that we don't even look at when we see it, if you see an apple, really you should stop. It should take your breath away. But that's if you would know. We do it with the cake. That's the problem. The cake is the only thing that God didn't make. Cake is from the Shlosh Dvarim Escharet Aleim B'chol Yom. Right? That's what the Gemara says. There's 3 things God regrets every day. One of them is cake. The Gemara calls it Yetzer Hara, but I call it cake. The cake is what he didn't make. The cake is we took what he made and made it into something else. Very different than what he made. The apple he taka made. God snacks. And the difference between an apple and a piece of cake is quite evident. You can speak to your nutritionist. You'll see the difference. Huh?
That's the ultimate apple.
But not really. You look even at a blade of grass. If you're aware, it should take your breath away. The Baal Shem Tov, yeah. You know how children, when they see the first thing in nature the first time, they could look at it for 30 minutes? But the fathers are so impatient because we have to go to shul. What do we have to do in shul? Talk to God about the amazing creation. So that's what he's doing. No, we have to go to shul. He's actually experiencing what he's supposed to experience in shul. But who has patience? Well, you can now look at a tree now for 30 minutes because you're going to look at a butterfly for 25 minutes? But be'etzem, if you're aware and you have the serenity, it should take your breath away. So that's all true and amazing. Comes down to Rebbe and says, emes. But still no, actually the art doesn't convey the artist. Yeah. To define God as Bashefer or even as God, it's you're saying the truth at Bashafen. But that's it. The fact that we're not only talking about this world, all the olamas, meaning the highest olamas, this not this defines the likus, and the best mashal for that in the Kashmir is in the physical world is Eish. The Eish is here, and the Eish warms us, and the Eish cooks. But the Eish says, don't contain me by this. And in a person's life, it's also true. Right? Hashem Elokecha Eish Eichlu, he's telling to the Jewish people. Hashem Elokecha, your koyach and chayas. The only way you can have a real relationship with yourself is through surrendering to the fact that you can't own it. It's like when people say, I'm going to become a happy person. Good luck. It's almost like I pursue happiness so I could grab it, put it in the cup, and own it, and now I'm happy. The more you do that to happiness, the more miserable you are. It's like Eish. There's something intangible about it. Even as it's here, it's not really here. So if you want to touch that spot, and the reason is because it's a flow. It's being in flow with the infinite. And being in flow with the infinite, you could never own. It has to own you. You understood what I just said? If you try to own your happiness, if you try to figure it out, right? When Adam and Chava ate the Eitz Hadas, what was their problem? What was their mistake? Their mistake was they decided they're going to figure themselves out. The Eitz Hadas was an amazing therapist, and he said, I have all the knowledge of the world. Sit with me, eat me, and you're going to know everything. Huh? AI or therapy? Huh? Eitz Hadas Toivira. And Taka, the Eitz Hadas is brilliant. The Nachash wasn't lying. He says, you're going to be like God, you're going to know everything. But you know what happened when they ate it? They became detached from themselves. How do I know? Because the first question Hashem says is, Ayeka, where are you? Before that, they knew where they are. At that moment, they don't know who they are anymore. Until today, people don't know where they are. Nobody knows where they are.
Wasn't it ultimately his will? The bill came around.
But you understand the vart. The moment you figure out who you are, good luck, because you're not going to know who you are anymore. And it's a painful reality. You have to surrender to this. Because can I just take my source of life, own it? This is who I am. You can't. Because it's pure Ein Sof. Pure Ein Sof you surrender into. You don't own it. Even the Pnimi is Makif. Even the Pnimi, Hashem Elokecha, is also Makif. There's an element that I can't own it, I can't control it. It's Eish, Mamish Eish. It's Nivdal, it's Be'etzem Nivdal. That's what the Baal Shem Tov says. So either I surrender into it, or I step away. And there's a resistance to it. Because the Eitz Hadas says, no, you got to figure it out. You got to control it, you got to figure it out. And when a person is so vulnerable, when a person is in that space where they're feeling their life force and energy, without this surrender to the ultimate source, it becomes dangerous. Because if I don't feel my life force and energy, okay, so I'm just, it's the blind leading the blind. I'm a blindfolded, deaf, mute man who knows nothing. When you get exposed to these deeper places, without this surrender to the real source, this is where Avodah Zarah could come in. Yeah. Avodah Zarah draws its energy from spiritual places. It starts replacing the true life source with other sources. So it's manipulative in a way that's much deeper. It's like when a person goes on a very deep spiritual journey or other forms of journey, and there's kaiches hatumah, there's sources of impurity over there. If I hijack your soul, that's real hijacking. If I don't hijack your soul, okay, I'm tempting you with external things, so only your external self is being hijacked. But if I go into your deeper self, it's like your deeper energy, right? If it's Hashem Elokecha, you need Eish Eichlahu. You need the bittul to the source. Because Lo Yizeh Ikar Elokus Mashaylam Es Meshavim Imenu. You're toifus what I'm saying. And if not, you're playing with fire, pun intended. You're playing with fire. And when you're playing with fire, you don't give fire to children. If you're not playing with fire, you can give it to people. You could give candies to people, you can give water to children. You don't give fire to children. Why? We all know why. Because if you don't know how to deal with fire, it's very, very dangerous. And the same is true whenever you're dealing with this frequency of life, which is Hashem Elokecha, it's Eish Eichlo. You need such a powerful element of humility and bittul, because Lo Yizeh Ikar Elokus Mashaylam Es Meshavim Imenu. And if you think even for a moment that it belongs to you and you own it, it's literally like you do that with fire. Good luck. You'll burn yourself and you'll burn everybody around you. Yeah. People don't realize what they're sometimes touching. You're touching things. It's better just stay away. Go far away and watch the bonfire from a distance. Don't get close. It's a very deep derech eretz. It's a humility. The Baal Shem Tov says, you want to go to the fire, no problem. Aber darfst verbrennt werden. If you're going to have your yeshus, if you're going to have your metzias separate, it's very dangerous. Now sometimes you have to understand also there's different frequencies of souls. A non-Jewish soul is not like a Jewish soul. A non-Jewish soul has a certain life force and energy. A Jew has a certain life force and energy. When you mix the two without understanding the boundaries, it also could be not good. Not because somebody's bad, we're not talking about that. This is not to put down people at all. We don't believe in that. Kibitzelam Elikim says every person is the image of Hashem. But just like every person has their own frequency, and I can't borrow yours, and I can't live by you, it doesn't work that way. If I do, it's a churban. The same is true also with Jews and non-Jews. And a real relationship is a relationship of respect, but not a relationship where you confuse the boundaries. Because when you confuse the boundaries, you're shayrish haneshama, and somebody who has a koyach to get into those places, they can inject things that are very, very deep, and then the person doesn't know who they are. So this is a very, very sensitive idea. Okay, I think it's enough said. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper, but it's all in these words of the Alter Rebbe. Nicht in dem besteht der Lekus, als die Welt kommt von ihm. Nicht in dem besteht es. The whole world comes from him, emes, it's gewaldig, we love it, we cherish it, aber lo yizeh ikar lekus. This doesn't define the Nekud of Elikus. Which of course also means you can have the whole world and you still don't have Elikus. It's frustrating. You can have the whole world and you don't have Elikus. It comes from it. It comes from it, no question. The ray of the sun comes from the sun, no question. It doesn't come from anywhere else. But the sun is not defined by one ray. And there it's even not a good mashal, because over there, Sof Kol Sof, the rays come directly from the sun, and that's what the sun does. It casts its rays. Here it's a completely different, beyond it. This is also what the Pasuk says in Yeshaya. And we actually learned the whole Inyan in this in the previous Maamar, Yehuda Ma'aseh, the Tafshin Yud Bais of Purim. So the Pasuk says in Yeshaya, everything that is called by my name, and in my honor, I created it and I formed it and I also did it. So the Navi Yeshaya there is talking about the time of Geula. In Kabbalah, this pasuk is referring to the whole creation. The Klal Yisrael is nechlakim l'tlas almin brasiv yitzaytev afasisiv. B'chtei sheyum shach l'kuz b'tlas almin. Hadei zayde shenikri b'shmi, haynu shetzarech likri lam shechayse ba'olames, l'fi shemitzad atzmi keteva eisha l'lamayla. Generally, the worlds are divided into three: Bria, Berasiv, Yitzartiv, and Asisiv, known as Bria, creation, formation, Yitzira, and action, Asiyah. But in order to access the divinity in all these three worlds, he starts off, Kail hanikri b'shmi. You need to call by my name. You need to call me by my name. Nikri b'shmi. Because on his own, it's like fire that goes upward. So it's almost like calling you by your name so that you come here, you approach me. Just like we speak about the flow as being manifested in three worlds, Bri Yitzira Asiyah, it's because the Hamshach itself has three dimensions, and that's what the three worlds represent. Explaining, when you say the fire coming down, there's three aspects. Just like we speak about the creation was because of Yisrael. Bereshis bar Elokim, Rashi says, Bereshis is Bais Reshis, because of Reshis, because of Yisrael, and because of Torah. So everything in creation is reflected in the Jew, in the Jewish soul. So in the powers of the soul, you generally have three kaiches: thought, speech, and action, which parallel Bria Yitzira Asiyah. Dini HaMachshava Yisavas Chadasha Shari L'mayla MaMachshava Einesis Nidim V'Nigluvim Kenadei Zedugmas HaBriya Shuinyin Yisavas Yesh Meyayin. Machshava, thought, represents Bria. It's like a new creation. Because beyond thought, there's no tangible or conscious letters and words. So essentially, Machshava is similar to a Bria, which is a new reality. You know, if we think, where did thought come from? It like emerges. Machshava, something new happens. There's oisius, there's tangible letters and words that are formulating energy. Again, we take it for granted. We take even an apple for granted. We certainly take machshava for granted. Fakert, machshava drives us crazy. But really, if you go back, right, that's the power of silence, of his beinunus. When you go back and you're just silent and mindful and present, machshava, every machshava is a miracle. It's a bria chadasha. Because the oisius of machshava is like a new reality. Before machshava, in other words, in a deeper place of consciousness, we don't have oisius nidim v'niglim. He emphasizes they're not tangible, they're not visible. They exist in subconscious as well, as we learned. But oisius in a tangible, visible way begins in machshava. Something happens. Energy somehow is formulated in letters. Now we take all this for granted, but don't. This is a new reality. So it's like Bria, which is Yesh Me'ayin, something from nothing. What does it mean something from nothing? Something completely new. Before that was nothing. The Ramban writes in Bereshis that word for Yesh Me'ayin in Hebrew is bara. Create means new. Not form, not develop, not evolve. Create. Bria is Yesh Me'ayin. Something from a pre-existing nothing. It didn't develop something into something else. That's Yesh Me'ayin. It's Yesh Me'ayin. It's new, completely new. Unprecedented. There was no, what's called in English, antecedent. There was no source for it. Visible source. Dibur is not that. Speech is bringing out what is dormant, what is concealed. Speech reveals what is concealed in your thought. Either what you're actually thinking right now, I'm thinking about something and I'm sharing it with you, or maybe I thought about it a year ago, or a month ago, or a day ago, and I'm sharing it. But it first had to, what's the word? It had to percolate. Percolate. What does percolate mean?
The surface.
Okay.
The surface.
It had to somehow percolate. Okay.
Surface up.
Yeah. In machshava, for it to come out in dibur, right? Even if the machshava was 20 years ago, sometimes things come out, but something was sitting in you. Yeah. Even, it's true, some people first talk and then think. But even that, there was some form of thought on some level. He says, Kigam kasher loy bedas yedaber. Even when a person is talking what you would say, it seems like rubbish and nonsense. Obviously, they didn't think for a moment. Did you think what you're saying? No. Loy bedas yedaber. He says, at some point, they did think. It couldn't have gone to the world of dibur. There was no machshava before.
A lot of people say without thinking.
That itself was a thought. Sometimes the Meshagoyim are the most thought out people. You know that. So that's why Dibur is associated with the world of Yetzirah, which takes the Bria and develops it. It reveals the concealment of Bria. That's why we say in the blessings, it's also from a pasuk in Yeshaya, but we say it every morning, Yotzer Oir uver Choshech. He forms light and creates darkness. Now it's interesting. Yotzer comes after Boire. So Boire is higher than Yotzer, because Boire is creating anew and Yotzer is forming. So why is creation darkness and formation light? It should be the other way around, right? We think light is higher than darkness. He says that's exactly the point. Because Bria is called darkness because it's invisible to us. It's still concealed. Like, I don't know your thoughts. The way I know you is from your words. So Yotzer is Oir and Boire is Choshech. The Olam HaYetzirah brings out in a revealed way what is concealed and dark in Olam HaBria. To reveal darkness, you need a light. To reveal the thoughts, you need some Oir. So that's why your Olam HaYetzirah, just like Dibur, brings the Oasis of Machshava into a more concretized and tangible fashion. So Olam HaYetzirah is the consciousness where that which was more dark in Bria comes out. But really, Bria is much higher. That's why it's darker. Because that's generally the principle. What is higher in consciousness is more dark because I don't have access to it. I don't know it. The fact that I don't know it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means it exists in a more powerful way that my knowledge can't contain it, and therefore it's called subconscious. Subconscious doesn't mean you don't have it. You have it much more. It impacts you much more. It just impacts you in a way that it's not consciously being filtered through your containers because your containers are too small for them. So in order to get from Boire to Yotzer, it's a huge descent, and that's what makes the Choshech come out into Oir. What we don't know about impacts us much more than what we do know about. It just impacts us in a way that we don't know about it, which means it's much more powerful because you're completely not in control. And the resistance to get from Boire to Yotzer is very deep because whenever you're opening up new channels of communication, the static is very, very powerful because your conscious had a reason that it didn't keep this, that it kept this in bay, it kept this secret. It didn't feel that you were ready for it. So when you're open for it, there's a lot of resistance. Are you going to be overwhelmed with this knowledge? Will this destroy you? But that's the moment that you can't be afraid of, because this is literally expanding. It's literally expanding your capacity to be able to hold on to things that previously you couldn't hold on consciously. So the fact that it's choshech doesn't mean it's not existent. It's much deeper in existence. And therefore my conscious Olam HaYitzirah doesn't have access to it. So in a person's life, this is the example that's expressed by thoughts and words. Thoughts itself have many levels. There's conscious thoughts, there's unconscious thoughts. But the point here is that this is a metaphor for Helam and Gilui. And that's why it's called Lashon Surah, because words are just thoughts taking on a concrete form. You know, you can have a log and then you sculpture it into a particular vessel. So you took the same log, but you sculpture it. That's what Dibur does. Dibur takes the machshava and sculptures it. It makes it beautiful. It makes it tangible. You know, a wordsmith knows how to take thoughts and turn them into cohesive, integrated, beautiful phraseology that can be comprehended and easily obtained by people. That takes the chachma of a Bal Tzura. That's what surah means. You're a tzayar, you're an artist. An artist takes pre-existing canvas, pre-existing pigment, which is ink, pre-existing materials, but turns it into something everyone can appreciate. And then you have Maisa. What's Maisa? Maisa are actions that completely become separate from you. Like we learned in the previous Maamar, La Yehudim, before Purim, La Yehudim Tavshin Yud Bais. Dibur, speaking, it leaves you, but at least there's communication. If you're speaking, I know that you're saying it. And once you finish speaking, the words are gone. I mean, they can be recorded today and hear it later, but the act of speaking is gone. You finish speaking and end it. And for you to actively be engaged in speaking, there is a speaker. So the words leave the speaker. Maisa is something else. Maisa, you're doing it in something that's outside of you. Dibur, you're talking. I'm listening, but you're talking. Maisa, let's say you build something, right? Your action is in something outside of you, and you leave, and the action is still there. You can't continue speaking when you stop speaking. The impact of your words can be very powerful. But the act of speech ends when you're not there. Why? Because speaking is you speaking. Maisa is not like that. Maisa is lechatchila, you're accomplishing something in a separate entity. And therefore when you're not there, it's exactly the same thing. Because even when you were there, it wasn't about you. You understand the difference? Even when you were there, it wasn't about you. You created a table. The table is here. I don't know who made this table. I mean, it's very nice. I'm thankful. Whoever manufactured this table, I don't know. I don't know his name. I don't know his address. I don't know where he lives. I don't know what he does today. Hopefully he's still making nice tables. I don't know if it's a machine, probably. Hopefully he's also making nice tables. But my point is, right, Maisa is different. So what does this mean? Olam HaAsiyah. Olam HaBriya is the world of Machshava. Olam HaYitzir is the world of Dibur. Olam HaAsiyah is a different world. Here it's not about God anymore, it's about the world. That's what Maisa is. It's not about you communicating. It's about doing an action that's completely separate from you. That's what Olam HaAsiyah looks like. Olam HaAsiyah looks like a completely separate, detached world where you don't even know that somebody made it. You can even say a machine made it. God didn't make it. The mountain, I don't know, the black hole, some explosion made the mountain. The stars, another explosion made the stars. The ocean, a big explosion made that one. You're right, it stays. The Koyach HaMaisa stays, yeah. Yeah. But the Gemasi Olam HaAsiyah, Sheru Beira V'Rashayim Gavrim, but this is the Olam HaAsiyah. Which Ru Beira, most of it is Ra, meaning negativity. And the Rishayim, the rebellious ones or the wicked ones, prevail there, K'di Isa B'Tanya B'Shem Eitz Chaim. Like it says in Tanya, Perek Vav and Perek Chav down the name of the Eitz Chaim, that Olam HaAsiyah is Mali Klippus and Ru Beira V'Rashayim Gavrim. What means Ru Beira V'Rashayim Gavrim? In other words, Olam HaAsiyah is a place where you need to expect there to be tremendous concealment. Like, welcome. Yeah, this is Olam HaAsiyah. You discovered America together with Columbus. The Tanya doesn't say this to put people into despair. He tells it to people to understand what they're dealing with. The moment you know what you're dealing with, it's much easier to deal with it because this is exactly what it's like. Yeah, it's Olam HaAsiyah, so the entire source is concealed. When the source is concealed, what happens? All the parasites take over. The fact that Rishayim prevail in this world, of course, that's what this world is like. People get very, very discouraged when they see lies and deception and corruption, right? So the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, we know, we got this. We got this. This is where you have to shine. This is where you have to shine. You're going to become part of that. You're going to be part of the problem or part of the solution. The fact that it's not Olam HaYitzir, it's not Olam HaBri, it's not Olam HaTzilas, yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. That's Olam HaAsiyah. That's exactly the point. So don't be shocked and don't be overwhelmed. The main thing is don't be discouraged. This is exactly where you were sent. Yeah. So these three elements of the soul, when I use them for avodas Hashem, through serving Hashem and Torah and mitzvahs, they become a wick for the divine light, which is like fire. The wick draws down the fire. We learned that the three worlds are Bri, Yitzir, Asiyah, and God has to be called into them, Nikra B'Shmi, because He's like fire. The world was created for the Jewish people, so they also have these three worlds. And there's three types of machshava, dibur, maisa. Each of them needs to access the divine light, Bri, Yitzir, Asiyah. So when the Jew uses machshava, dibur, maisa, you actively engage your thoughts and your words and your behaviors and align them with the flow of the divine. You become a wick that literally brings down the fire into Bria through machshava, into Yitzira through dibur, and into Asiyah through maisa. Torah and mitzvahs literally call him out. It's like I call you. Yankel, Shmerel, Zelig, Dvoide, Chaya. I'm literally calling you out from your intimate space and drawing you towards me. It's like you're busy with your own thing and your child says, Tati, Mommy, right? And you turn around and you come, you approach. You go out from your space and you go into their space. In Torah mitzvahs itself, you have these three dimensions. Like it says, the world stands on three foundations: Torah, avodah, service, and charity, philanthropy, doing kindness. Avodah, inyan akarbonos, v'achshav tefillas connected to midin tiknum. K'mayim as al pasuk lovte b'chalavavchem ezei avodah shebelev zu tefillah avodah tzechaliz b'usid deliba b'kavana machshava. The first thing is avodah. What's avodah? Avodah refers to karbonos. Today it says the tefillah is davening is in lieu of the karbonos, in lieu of the carbon tamid. The Gemara says in Tainus in the pasuk avdoi b'chalavavchem, serve him with all your heart. We say it in Shema. Ezei avodah shebelev. Which is avodah that you do in your heart and with your heart. This is davening. So davening, the main idea of davening is ru'usa deliba, your heart, your kavana, your machshava, your mental internal space. That's what davening is. Of course, in davening there's also words, no question. But what is the nekuda of davening? Kavanas halev. And it's interesting, it's like karbanas. By karbanas, you see something you don't see in all the mitzvahs. And it's a peladikein, it says in Chassidus, that by karbanas, machshava affects the carbon in incredible ways. If I'm doing b'dikas chametz, right? And in my mind I say, I really like pizza. I don't want to burn the pizza. No problem, I don't care. Fine, I also like pizza. But burn it. I really like Crown Royal. I don't want to get rid of it. Okay, but get rid of it, it's fine. But if you're making a carbon, a kohen is sprinkling the blood, or doing shchita, or doing halacha, or doing kabbalah, and he has a machshava, he didn't do anything, he has a machshava, that he's going to eat it in the wrong time, in the wrong place, pigol, the whole thing is gone. Boop, garnished. Machshava, because the whole union of karbonas is ru'usa deliba, kavanas halev. So that's the b'china of avodah shebelev. Of course, tefillah needs words, but the words are just containers for the main thing of tefillah, which is daluf ne'miyat. There's a relationship. It's a mental space. People don't know this about davening, but that's truth. It's even al pinigla this way. This is not just in Chassidus. Reb Chaim Brisker writes, Chidush Rabbeinu Chaim Alevi al Rambam. I think it's the second Reb Chaim in his Sefer on Rambam. There's a very interesting story in Rambam in Hilchas Tefillah Perek Daled, I think Hilchas Tefillah Perek Yud. In one place, the Rambam says in Hilchas Perek Daled, he says, "Kol Tefillah b'li kavana ain't a Tefillah." If there's no kavana by Tefillah, it's not Tefillah. It's nothing. Perek Yud, the Rambam says you have to have kavana only by Birchas Avos. The first bracha, Elokei Avram, Elokei Mogen Avram, and if not, you have to repeat that. But the rest, but the Eved, if you didn't have kavana, you're yotzei. You were thinking about something else, Hashivenu, and then you woke up by Yiyul Eretz and you landed from Australia. Shalom Aleichem, Nagdushach v'naritzach. Oh, that was fast. b'diavad it's fine. The first bracha, so the Reb Chaim says it's a stira. First he says tefillah. Tefillah in the Rambam means Shmoneh Esrei. It doesn't mean the whole down. Tefillah Shmoneh Esrei. Generally in halacha when it says tefillah Shmoneh Esrei. Go ahead now. We're talking b'diavad. L'chatchila you always have to have kavanah. So Reb Chaim says to Maamar contradictions. He says a beautiful word. He says his lashon is today gavna kavanah ikar b'tefillah. There's two separate types of kavanas. The second place the Rambam is talking about Pirish Hamilas, Pashto understanding the words. Over there, b'diavad, even if you didn't do it the whole Shmoneh Esrei, Yaitza, besides the first bracha, you have to think about the meaning of the words. The first place the Rambam is not talking about Pirish Hamilas. He's talking about the kavanah klalis that you're standing in front of God. He said, without that, ain't a tefillah. It's not that you're missing a detail of tefillah. It's not an inyan of tefillah. Just a ma'aseh koif. Let's say you put on your computer starts davening. You put a piece in your mouth, and your mouth starts talking. You understand? It's not tefillah. L'mashal, an example. By shofar, there's different halachas, different tanoim, how you yotze shofar. For example, if I connect the shvarim and the trua, my yotze, it's a machlokes. You have to separate the shvarim and the trua, not separate the shvarim and the trua. How long does the trua have to be? How short? These are all details in tkiyah shofar. What happens if you don't use a shofar? You use a trumpet, you use a violin. Yeah, it's not. The chefts of the mitzvah is not here. The chefts of the mitzvah is not here. Yeah, there's a machlokes. What type of esrog? This type of esrog, that type of esrog does make a kosher. But what happens if instead of an esrog you use a watermelon? It's not a detail was missing. The esrog has a hole. The esrog is not mahudud. The esrog is blemished. The chefts is not here. Yeah, that's what the Reb Chaim is saying. The chefts of tefillah. If there's no kavanah, there's no chefts of tefillah. What makes it tefillah? What's pshat tefillah? You understand what he's saying? It's a very deep word. It's a lamdish word, but it's a chassidic word. You versteht? It's not you're missing a detail of davening. In davening, there's a lot of details. You have to have clean hands. You have to stand in a certain place. By Shmoneh Esrei, you have to have whatever. There's a lot of details. But even without those details, it's still called davening. You're missing something, and it may be something important, and it may passel your davening. You forgot Yalav V'Yava. You have to say it again. But nobody can say there was no Yalav V'Yava. There was no chefts of tefillah. If there's no kavan, he says there was no chefts. Instead of an esrog, you used a watermelon. Instead of a shofar, you used the violin. Instead of going into the sukkah on sukkahs, you went into the sukkah on Chanukah. Yeah, instead of a sukkah, you put a glass gazebo. It's not. You have space in the sukkah. It's not a chefts of tefillah. That's what the Rambam says. Ain't a tefillah. I'm not arguing with you. It's not a tefillah. You didn't begin. You didn't begin. You didn't begin. Yeah, you took a watermelon instead of an esrog. So you said, is it a good watermelon? But it's a nice one. I know it's a beautiful watermelon. We love watermelon. But another with an esrog. Yeah? You typhus dinyan. It comes purim. Instead of reading the Megillah, you read Eicha. We have nothing against Eicha. But it's not you missed a word in the Megillah. Okay, that's a psavart. You said it wrongly. Yeah? The chefs of Kriyas Megillah is not there. You understand? So that's what Reb Chaim says. So it's a moedik pshat. So the Rambam, when you talk about Pirish Hamilas, you know that you're talking to God. What does this mean practically? That the yesod of davening is presence. Presence. You understand? Presence. Right now, you're in a relationship with somebody. Without that, davening didn't begin. And you'll see this is hard for people. We think davening is just words. You said all, and you said every word nicely. But the whole time, I was somewhere else. So that's the first thing. And avodah is all machshava. That's olam habriya. Then you have Torah tzarich liyus b'dibur. K'may shekasav Chaim heim l'moitzaeyim l'moitzieyim b'peh. Ubedibur gufulei maspik adibur b'lechishel tzarich liyus b'kel dafka at shetia rucha b'chol ramach evonim shazim mishtamedes v'aynu shedavka de adibur yeshna mitis avonas v'asagas ha-Torah. Torah, of course, you also have to have kavana, but Torah, the main focus is dibur, speaking. The pasuk says, Chaim heim l'moitzaeyim, Chazal say in Erevin, l'moitzieyim. They're a life for those who utter them with their mouth. And not only quietly, but dafka b'koil, to learn with a koil, with your sound, with your voice. To the point that the Gemara says it's only preserved if it's harucha, if it's arranged in all your ramach evonim, including in your mouth. And the reason is because that's how Hashem communicated Torah. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Leimer. The whole Torah was, Hashem spoke. That is Torah. Vayidaber Hashem. It's the dibur of Hashem, and it's the dibur of a person. So in Torah you'll say, but I'm thinking, I'm understanding, obviously. But the main thing is it comes from machshava into dibur. Ugemach gemilas chassadim miklolos hamitzvah shnikru b'shem tzedakah shenyoni lachis ruach shvalim shaydei zenasas hamshachah v'chinas afasis v'lachis eselam asiyah elam hashafel. Gemilas chassadim is the third element. Tzedakah, giving, which is all about action. It's not about thoughts and it's not about words. It's also thoughts and words. But the main thing of gemilas chassadim is the action, the maisa, which represents all of the actions of the mitzvahs. And the idea of tzedakah is to give life to those who are humble, to those who are destitute, to those who are desperate. That's the whole idea of gemilas chassadim, and that's why it represents all of the mitzvahs, where you're doing something in the physical world which is lowly. So the physical world is a mashal for the poor, and you're lifting them up. That's what mitzvahs are. And that brings the divine light into afasisiv. It's the wick for godliness in Olam Asiyah, Olam HaShafel. On this he says, let's just do this piece here. We'll do this paragraph. So now when he says that Hashem is a fire, he doesn't only say that the light is fire, he says it's a fire that eats, that consumes. We explain that it's a fire because it's always going up. It's essentially infinite. That's why you need to call it down. It's a chiddush for it to be contained. The natural state is ascending. Like it says in Tanya in Perek Yutes, that the soul is a chelik elokah mimal. So the natural desire of the soul is what? To go up. And it has to be contained by a wick. The wick is the body. The wick is the body. You have to understand what that means. That means that if you're really, really in touch with your soul, it's a struggle to be embodied. The natural state of the soul is it wants to be subsumed in infinity. That's why anybody who's really in touch with their soul, they're not afraid of death. They're completely not afraid of death. Completely not. They are so comfortable with them being surrendered to infinity. And it's so visceral and obvious, it's like, I'm just going home. That's life. Very good. Not chas v'shalom that they crave death. But like Rabbi Akiva said, I'm not afraid. It's my whole life. B'chol nafshecha. Of course, Hashem wants you in this world. But in terms of consciousness, the soul is mamish pure Ein Sof. It's pure infinity. We're just so gullible, we're so deceived by the klippus that we think we're not there. But that's really the state of the soul. It's Eish. Gullible is gullible. Very good. Gullible. Nice word. Tell it to Webster's. A wordsmith. A wordsmith. A word creator, actually. You created. It wasn't just developed. What's Eish Eichla? So he says, so dugma sa'esha mechalu mevatlas apsila. The psila has to surrender. The Eish eats up and destroys the wick. Or consumes the oil, consumes the log. It eats it up. Eish Eichla. If the log tells the fire, I'm going to feed you, but I want to remain intact. Sorry. If the oil tells the fire, I'm here for you, but don't eat me up. There can't be a fire. The only way you could be a keli for the fire is if you get eaten by the fire. The Gemara speaks about a psila sha'ar mesachseches ba, meaning a wick. You can't use it for Shabbos because the oir is mesachseches ba. You know what mesachseches means? The oir struggles with it. The oir gets into a fight. You know, like when the wick is wet, it gets into a fight. Like sichsuch, they get into a machlekes. The wick says, sorry. It's an opposite nature, so there's resistance. And then it's not going to be, and that's why Shabbos, you don't use these types of wicks in Perek Mamem Adlikin. Why? Because it's not going to be stable, and you may have to fix the fire on Shabbos, which is going to be, of course, a Isser on Shabbos. You're going to fix the fire. So lechatchila, don't light in such a wick. What does this mean spiritually? Shleimas b'kavoida de Torah mitzvahs atzmam. Ela Torah mitzvahs tzrichim li is bebittel dafka. We just said what brings down the divine fire, the wick, machshava, dibur, mais, thoughts, words, behaviors. Torah, avoida, gemilas chasadim. Avoida is bria, Torah is yitzira, and gemilas chasadim is asiya. So that's enough. No, it's not enough. For the wick to bring it down, the wick has to surrender. It has to be consumed. That means not Torah mitzvahs alone. Torah mitzvahs with bittul. When the bittul is missing, the element of humility and surrender in Al-Zam. On this, the Gemara says, the Gemara says, in Saita Dafei, Hashem says, with an arrogant person, I cannot live with him under the same roof. In other words, you will not hold, I am not going to stay here. There's no way that this fire is going to be present if there is arrogance. I can't live with him in the same place. This is the It's not just that when you learn Torah or observe mitzvahs, but you're missing the bittul. So the Torah mitzvahs are not kalim, they're not wicks to access the divine fire, to be able to be contained by them and brought down. So the divine fire remains as it is in its essence. And in its essence, it's just fire that wants to go upward. That's number one. But not only that, the yeshus chases away the fire even more. In other words, it removes the light, it removes the fire even more. In addition to its own nature, the Gemara says that with arrogance, doichik raglei hashchina. It's like the legs of the Shechina are here, and you're pushing away the legs. Like if I'm in a little tight room and you come in, I push your legs out. Get out of it. There's no space for you. So it's not just the Shechina doesn't come in. You're doichik raglei hashchina. In addition to the fact that fire on its own wants to leave, and you have to bring it down, and you don't have the capacity to bring it down because of your yeshus. Not only that, you further push it away and drive away. Doichik raglei hashchina. So this is the key that the Torah mitzvahs need to be done with a bittul. Need to be permeated with a bittul, with a sense of surrender. Then they become wicks and containers that can access the fire. Why? Because they're ready to be consumed by it. What does this mean? This is the nekuda that we spoke about before. This is what the Baal Shem Tov said, that you can't look at the fire from a distance. Right? This is the second nekuda. It's not just eish, it's eish oichla. What does that mean in a person's life? That it's really a choice. I could do all Torah mitzvahs. I could learn Torah, I can observe mitzvahs. But there's no bittul. What does it mean there's no bittul? It's all for me. I want to become big, and I want the credit, and I want to own it. And it could be in a very stupid way, and it could be even a very sophisticated way. In a stupid way, it could be, whatever I want. I'm not going to call it stupid because it's so human. These are normal coping mechanisms. But it could be in a very brute way. But emes, it's stupid. But this is the human nature. He says it's still stupid, even if I don't want to call it that. But the point is, it could be in a very, very grubber, brute way, and it could be in a very, very subtle way, right? But the element is merich. I want more me. In other words, I'm trying to feed an ego that doesn't really exist. Literally, I'm trying to stoke a flame and build something up that doesn't exist. It's a house of cards. So either I do it because I want validation, I want to be a gadol. Even if I want reward, I want recognition, I'm going with the flow. So going with the flow, okay, is just, but here there's no bittul. What does it mean there's no bittul? There's no element of surrender. The person is not ready to surrender their ego. And by the way, surrendering the ego doesn't only mean surrendering your arrogance, it also means surrendering your humility. There's two types of egos. One is I'm better than everybody, and one is, listen to this, I'm worse than everybody. You understand? And that's a more dangerous ego sometimes than the first one. Because the first one looks like ego. I'm better than everybody. Ich bin der Feinschmecker. I get it. I'm sophisticated. I'm brilliant. I did so much work on myself. Everyone else, a bunch of peasants. Dead people walking, clueless, don't know what hit them. Nebuch. But this person, I'm spiritual. I get it. I'm wise. I even have bittul. I understand what bittul is. I know what surrender is. The bottom line is you're better than everybody. So that looks like ego. But then there's a much more subtle ego. You know what it is? I'm worse than everybody. Ich bin a shmata. I'm a loser. I'm a mechalel Shabbos. I don't believe in God. God hates me. I'm the worst of the worst. I'm tumah. And you have 1,000 proofs. But it's all ego. I am impure. I'm dirty. I'm filthy. I'm and I'm even crying. Look how miserable I am. It looks like bittul, but it's not. You know why? Because in both of them, you're busy detaching yourself from God. It's a very subtle thing. Bittul doesn't always look like I'm just a humble nebuch. That's not bittul. You're not a humble nebuch. Bittul means you're part of the infinite flame. It's very different than a humble nebuch. People always ask, why do you say bittul means alignment? Bittul means nullification. Yeah, nullification in the fire. Which fire is it? Ein sof. So you're infinite. That's what bittul looks like, infinite. If you're telling me you're feeling infinite, now that's a good, that we like. If you're telling me you're better than people, you're worse than people, it's the same thing. That's what arrogance does. First it makes you better than everybody, and then it throws you down, and now you become worse than everybody. So you're a zombie, dead zombie walking around. I am the greatest loser in history. God personally hates me. No Gehenna will be enough for me. Wow. How did you become so arrogant to think that you could be such a big loser that God has nothing better to do than to think about your Gehenna? That's pretty arrogant. Who died and made you a king that you became such a big loser? That takes arrogance, but the reason is because that's mamash a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism to keep you separate, it's a very good coping mechanism because it looks humble. In many ways it's worse because it doesn't look arrogant. The first one looks arrogant. You're just a vergrepte balgaiva. We get it. You know what you're looking at? This guy, verkehrt. He's sobbing with self-pity. But the word is self-pity. This is not with judgment. Nothing of this. If you hear this with judgment, you're not hearing the Maamar. You're using a watermelon, yeah. This is not judgment. This is describing the experience. Torah and mitzvahs, when it's not done with bittul, what's that bittul? Bittul is an internal experience where I'm ready to be consumed in the flame of Hashem. That's it. And it's energetic. It's all energetic. It's not words. It's not words. It's not words. At the surface, it look the same. Two people are learning. Two people are doing mitzvahs. Two people are davening. Two people are communicating. Two people are giving a shir. Two people are listening to a shir. One, deep down, there's no bittul. Somebody once told me, he said the price of taking credit for what belongs to God is you're going to have to take the blame when it doesn't work out. If you're taking credit when it does work out instead of giving the credit to God, remember when you fail, you're going to have to take the blame too. And that's going to hurt. Don't take credit and don't take blame. You're exactly where you have to be. You're a channel. Huh? It's a package deal. But suddenly when it's going well, I become God because I want the credit. Tomorrow you're going to fall. You're going to take credit for that too. And it's not going to feel good. Suddenly and that's what happens to people. Today I'm on top of the world. I'm doing well, so I own it. It's me. Tomorrow I get thrown off Labira Mikta, because that's usually what happens, as is the Seder. And then what happens? You blame yourself. Wow, I never saw such a loser in the history of humanity. Such horror I never saw. It's mamish the same thing. But when you could surrender and you could say, just be part of the Eish, it's fine. No, I want to be separate from the Eish. Okay. But then you're going to blame yourself also, It's a very powerful word. So I'm saying when it says the word bittul here, bittul means anything that tells us not to surrender. Surrender doesn't mean you become a shmata. Surrender has the most confidence. But it's not your confidence. It's God's confidence. It's Hashem's confidence. Rabbi Isaac, verstehst? Huh? Love and confidence. Love, confidence, joy. Oiz v'chedva b'mkaimai. In his space, there's oiz, confidence, and chedva, there's joy. Why is there joy? What's the joy? Whenever there's bittul, there's joy. V'yasfu anavim b'Hashem simcha. Because in the source, there's joy. The source is bliss. So when you channel it, it's a beautiful fire. So there's light, there's warmth, there's love. Now, but energetically, there's going to be a lot of resistance to bittul. I'll do everything. I'll learn. Maybe I'll even be a baki b'shas. I'm bittul. And sometimes verkehrt. My accomplishments take away the bittul even more because I have what to sell. I have what to show off. And this is not an external thing. It's not, in other words, sometimes it's literally, you can almost feel it in your bones, in your body you can feel it. If you're in a place of surrender, where you really don't have to exist as a separate being, or you're busy controlling and taking credit and being separate. It's an internal feeling. You understand what I'm saying? Those who work on themselves know the difference. You feel it in your boat. You literally feel it in your heart. You feel it in your heart. How do you get to such a place? Huh? It's very deep because everything in this world takes us out of it. That's just Olam Hazeh Mali Klippus. What does it mean Olam Hazeh is Mali Klippus? Rishayim Goivrim Bayru Bayra. It means that everything in this world will take you out, including yourself. You know, they send a clip and then they say, and if you sign up to the course, 40 days, and then you'll be a master of bittul. You'll be a master of bittul. The answer is how. The answer I'm going to answer you. Yeah. Du kommst doch von Ger, so kann entweder scharf, ja. Bist doch von der Ger Gezer. Okay. Eish boye bekotsk. The question itself is nicht a question of bittul. How do you get there is the opposite of bittul. You don't get there. You don't get there. The question of the Balgaiva, how do I get there, is the problem. I just want you to understand. It's good that he asks. I understand. I'm just trying to bring out. I'm talking to myself. When I say I want to get there, that's the problem. I'm not going to get there. No. Yeah. I'm not saying there's no way to get there. I'm saying the urge to get there is not the way to get there. It's chasing my own tail. Right? It's letting go of the need to get anywhere. There's a beautiful I'm telling you something. This is how you get there. You get there by letting go of the need to get there. You know, there's a hike. And when are we going to get to the end? When are we going to get to the end? There's no end. The point is the hike, not the end. What's the end? What's going to happen at the end? It's going to be of you. You'll take 3 pictures. So that's the way to get there, by letting go from the need to get there. No, you shouldn't stay anywhere. You should learn Chassidus a whole day. That's what you should do. Now you asked a good question, and I gave you a good answer. A junger Mann wie dir darf lernen 2 Stunden Tag, a kol von einem 1 Stunde Tag in der Früh, wenn du wächst dich auf. Wirst haben mit was zu leben. Alle Bücher in the Buch, alle Bücher in the Welt kommen nicht zu dem. So als little glimpses of truth once in a while, if you're lucky. Was hat geschrieben in der Sefer. Das ist kulei tada, it's a kulei bittul. It was written, this was said by people, by a person, and from before, that were holding the frequency of bittul in the world. And they didn't play with it, because they knew if you play with it, you can get burnt, and you burn everybody else. It's literally like there's a wick that holds Hashem's frequency of light, and you're holding it. Literally holding it. You understand the achrayas? People think being a real Rebbe is easy. It's Mesiras Nefesh every second. It's Mamish Mesiras Nefesh every second. It's not a Cadillac. You know that song about the Cadillacs? There's a vart from the Alter Rebbe. It's a hafladik vart. I didn't say Krishma, and I think this man is in a few minutes. I want to tell you the vart, but I just need to say Krishma. Okay. So, word from the Alter Rebbe. It says, what's the first mitzvah after Matan Torah? The first mitzvah is, what's the first thing Hashem said after Matan Torah? So he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you saw that I spoke from the end of Yisro. Atem ri'isim in Hashemayim dibarti imachem, don't make any gods of silver and gold. Mizbeach adama tasali, v'zavachta Allah v'esaylasecha v'shlamecha. Build for me a mizbeach from Adama, from earth, and slaughter your oilus and shlamim. He says, why is this the first mitzvah after Matan Torah? So he said, after Matan Torah, the worst thing that can happen is you feel like you got it. He says, mizbeach Adama tasali. Verstehst du Yiddish? So it's bayen a mizbeach from bittel. Build a mizbeach from Adama, from bittel, from earth. V'nafshi kafar. V'zavachta alav. And on that mizbeach you should slaughter two things: oiloi secha v'shlamecha, deine aliyos und dein shleimus. Two things surrender: the need to go up, aliyos. I want to become a ben aliyah. I want to become a bal madrege. Yeah, a bal aliyah, a ben aliyah. You're going to look at me and say, "Psst, this is a ben aliyah." Not only you, even if I'm more normal. Yeah, but I'm going to look at myself, right? When I come out of the mikveh in the morning. 4:30, 4:20 a.m. Yeah? Or better, 3:20 a.m., the real Bnei Aliyah. I'm going to come out of the mikveh and say, something there, it's already 30, what are this, in recovery they say, 30 years sobriety, yeah? Did I secure a mikveh 3:20 a.m., epis is da, right? And it's just a second. Aliyas, and then shlamecha, your shleimus. You need to be shalom. And he didn't mean shleimus in a fake way. He meant shleimus in a real way. Alter Rebbe's definition of shleimus. That's the first thing you have to put on the mizbeach. Why? Because the moment I'm looking for my aliyas and my shleimus, I'm disconnected. I'm just disconnected. And it's a very, very deep moment. It's literally a very deep moment. I had an experience. I don't know why it happened. I guess I had to learn from it. I was going to the mikveh. It was a few days ago. I was in the mikveh. It was early in the morning. And when I went under the water, I started to think, it's a pity people who don't know what mikveh is. They don't know. A whole year they don't go to the mikveh. Erev Yom Kippur, they haksach harayin in a mikveh because it says in Shulchan Aruch you have to go to the mikveh. And it's a show that they're not sensitive to the energy of mikveh. They don't understand. And I don't know why. It popped in somebody in my head, somebody I know very well, Taka, a good Jew, but he doesn't know anything about mikveh. He didn't grow up he grew up more in a Lubavitcher community, so the whole union of mikveh is a little foreign. And they go Erev Yom Kippur because it says in Shulchan Aruch, and maybe, before the Chassan, I don't know. And I started to think, and I started to compare myself to him. That I do know what mikveh is, at least. And it's all under the water. And then I'm like, shaita. The Mitzvos Rebbe says, Tvila is oisius habittel. So you're in the mikveh under the water, where the whole union is bittel, because you can't live under the water. The whole union of Tvila is mamash bittel. And what are you thinking about? Adubis from the best dimension, because you know about mikveh. What an amazing mikveh experience. Mamish toivel v'sheretz biyadei. Mamish. In Chassidus, it's mamish toivel. Just like toivel v'sheretz biyadei, it's a joke. You're taking the sheretz that's causing you tumah with you in the mikveh. So this is mamish, right? And then I'm like, wow. Amazing. You go to the mikveh your whole life, and it's noch ein Stück yeshes. It gave me a shear. I'm not taking back that it's very good that a mikveh is very, very powerful. That's emes. But just me thinking about that under the water, comparing myself to somebody else, that was already the Yetzer Hara trying to take over. So the point is that we get hijacked in a second. We right away judge. What is judgment? What is that about? When you surrender to infinity, what's the judgment? You want to teach people about mikveh? Teach people about mikveh. So it's a schus. You had a schus. That you happen to grow up in a place where they do know about mikveh. And the Alter Rebbe writes in the Torah that you should go to the mikveh in the morning as a hachana for davening. And even according to some Rishonim, Tvilas Ezra, Talmid Rabbeinu Yoina hold that Tfilas Ezra, which is after these relationships or Keri, was not bottle. Well, the Tfilas Ezra was masakin that anyone who sees a Keri and whatever the sea that comes out, you have to go to the mikveh before davening and before learning. So they will mavatal it afterwards because nobody could live. It was very, very hard for people. But Talmid Rabbeinu, and Api Shulchan Aruch, you don't have to. But Talmid Rabbeinu Yoina hold that for Tfilah it wasn't bottle, so it's mamish a chiyuv to go if there was an inyan of Keri. And by Chassidim they're very makbid on what's called Tfilas Ezra. It's fine. So you were Zoicha. So fine, teach it to somebody. Gesundheit. Yeah, bittul doesn't mean that you're shmata and you weren't Zoicha to anything. It means like Moshe Rabbeinu, like the Alter Rebbe says, how was Moshe on of Moed? Because he knew that all of his kaiches come from Hashem, and if somebody else would have gotten them, they may have done better. So it's a channel. But the Mikol Adam, yeah. Why am I saying this to you? The Alter Rebbe says, means you have to shecht on the Mizbeach the need for aliyahs, the need for shleimus. So we get there the first way by letting go or trying to get somewhere. And then you get wherever you have to get. Wherever you're supposed to get as the wick of the fire, you get there. By the way, people think that this means you don't have ambition in life. You don't have creativity in life. You can't work towards something. You're a couch potato. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. The opposite. You have the most creativity in life. As I told you once, the word creativity comes from the word creative. The moment there's only one source of creativity. The Asara Maamar, there's no other source of creativity. Where are you going to get creativity from? It's all Vayomer Elokim Yihir Vayihir. The moment you become a channel for that creativity, your creativity is infinite.
You say one source, Asara.
But Asara Maamar comes from Vayomer Elokim. It's all one.
Asara is one also.
Of course, Asara. But Maimer Echad Yachal Baris. It says, but Maimer Echad Yachal Baris. So the Alter Rebbe explains on the level of Yachal, it was all Maimer Echad. On the level of Yachal, on the level of potential. Then it came out in Asara Mamaras. But here, yeah, that's the Echad. The Echad is a light. The moment it was said, let there be light, once light happened, everything happened. Light is the beginning of everything. Today in physics, they're getting closer and closer to this Nakuda. Because what is light? Light is transmission of the source. Light is taking the source and transporting it to a new place. Light allows you to see me. The moment Hashem said, Yehi Or, let there be light, it also means something else. It means I want somebody else to see. That's the beginning of creation. Yeah, that's the oimik of the shalah. The shalah, the oimik of Yehi Or, it is the moment I say, I want to be seen. Oh, so there's somebody else. Even before there was somebody else. Everything begins with Or Ein Sof, al Pichsidus. What's Or is? I want to be seen. Even before there's somebody to see it. But I want to be seen. It should be a Metzias that can be seen. Well, what is that? That's already something else. So Or is the interface between pure infinity and creation. Always. That's what Or is. So the moment you align with that, it's a source of creativity. It's not the end of creativity. It's a source of creativity. Moshe wasn't less creative because he was more humble. He was probably one of the most successful people in history. He accomplished quite a lot for an Egyptian, for a boy who grew up as an Egyptian Gentile, in the palace of an Egyptian Gentile. He accomplished quite a lot. He created the first revolution in history, right? He created the eternal people. Was somebody more successful than Moshe Rabbeinu? It's hard to find that. And yet, he was the most humble person. V'nachnu mai, he didn't even want it. Why? Hagufa. That's why he was the most successful person. The moment you really know how to take yourself out of the way, your creativity knows no bounds. The moment you take yourself out of the way, your creativity knows no bounds anymore. All the boundaries around our creativity is because I need to be something. I'm in the way, yeah. We literally block our own creativity. It's a normal thing. It's very normal. That's what Olam Haza is. Okay, we're going to take a break here. And Be'ezer Hashem will continue. Tomorrow there's a women's class. It's Tuesday. We'll continue Thursday morning. Everybody is invited. Steht in Bnei Yissaschar, das ist Tu B'Av. Bas Ploini Le Ploini. Why is Tu B'Av Shidduchim? You know what the Bnei Yissaschar writes? Tu B'Av is a day of Shidduchim, because Chafei Elul is the creation. So 40 days before Yetziras Havlad, you have to announce the Shidduch. So Tu B'Av, you announce the Shidduch. The Bnei Yisos gedacht sich. Is Teufels gewesen? Good. No, he said it with humor. He said it with humor. He knew what to say. I don't mind giving him credit, but in this case, he knew what to say. Huh? Welche Nekuda? It's not really understanding, it's experience. It's not understanding.
You have to be here. Be present to this year. That's it.
Be present to yourself also. That's what he means. Evert a therapist. He's becoming a future therapist. Yeah. That's why he has to be more careful than other people.
So don't give your trauma stories.
Because therapists officially are supposed to hold up this frequency, Vayakhel. That's what they're supposed to do.
You have to make a group of Chassidic therapists, no?
There's a different we need to make a men's group.
Huh?
We need to make a men's group.
Yeah, it's not about Chassidic therapists. It's therapists that live Chassidus. That's what it's on. The type of hat he wears, whatever.
That's not what I meant.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
I would make a shir, especially shir Chassidic, especially for
Tzlach Rabbi. Thank you, Nechemia, for the cappies. I forgot.